the Debrief, Carolina Journal's weekly recap of major developments in politics and public policy in North Carolina. I'm Mitch Kokai, sitting in for Donna King, and joining me on this couch for the Debrief is Andy Jackson. He is the director of the Civitas Center for Public Integrity at the John Locke Foundation. Also joining us on our star-studded cast of panelists, we have Brooke Medina, who is vice president at the John Locke Foundation, and Kelly Lester, who is a policy analyst at the Locke Foundation's Center for Food, Power, and Life. Always have to remember how that one goes. Thanks all for joining us. We're going to start the program with a few headlines, and the first of them should be great news to anyone who is a fan of school choice. The idea is that the Opportunity Scholarship Program is growing, and February 1st marked the opening of applications for new families that wanted to get involved with the Opportunity Scholarship Program. We know that shortly after the program opened, the website crashed, and despite that, within the first week, we had a new record for new applications, more than 32,000 applications. That tripled the number of applications during the same time period last year. The priority window closes March 1st, so there's still some time for families that want to get involved to do that. And Brooke, I know that you are a fan of school choice, as are all of us. This has got to be great news for people who want to see parents and families have more opportunity.
Yeah, I think that really what happened with the outsized request for those scholarships had to do with the fact that there really was such a market demand that we weren't even, we knew there was a market demand, but actually having the data to back that up, that overwhelmingly North Carolinians were really excited about accessing this. And so it's a cause for celebration. Certainly as a parent myself with school-age children, I'm very excited about this new rollout.
Yeah, and this is the first year that the program is now open to people of all income levels. The money will go first to those at the lowest end of the scale, but anyone can apply, so it's very interesting. We're going to move to another headline now. Eyebrows were raised when it was announced that the North Carolina Rate Bureau, which works with insurance companies, wanted to raise homeowners insurance by an average of 42% across North Carolina, including 99% average increases along the coast. After that announcement, 25,000 letters, emails, phone calls to the state insurance department, and Insurance Commissioner Mike Causey announced this week he has rejected that plan. He is not going to go forward with what the Rate Bureau is asking for. A hearing has been scheduled for October 7th. There's still a prospect that we might not even get to a hearing. There may be some sort of deal. The last time this cropped up in 2020, the Rate Bureau asked for about a 24% rate increase. The deal ended up being less than 8%, so we'll have to watch this very closely. But Kelly, this issue is not necessarily in the Center for Food, Power, and Life's wheelhouse, but prior to joining Locke, you worked at the Cato Institute, whole group of libertarians. I'm guessing if you put on your libertarian hat, you're saying, wait a minute, why is government involved in this in so many different ways? Why is it just the market?
You know, a lot of people are probably confused right off the bat just hearing something like that, hearing that the government does have a say in what an insurance rate would be. Isn't that the job of an actuary? That's what they do, right? They calculate that risk. And I think it always comes down to, why does the government do this? What's the point? And why are they sticking their nose where it doesn't belong? Food's already so expensive, living's so expensive. Why raise rates right now?
Insurance rates, exactly. All right, our last headline in this segment. This is a national story. The Republican National Committee's leadership is likely to change. Ronna McDaniel, who's been the leader since 2017, has indicated that she is likely to leave. Republican sources are saying this could happen as soon as this month after the South Carolina primary on February 24th. That's of national interest. Why do we care here in North Carolina? Well, beyond the national interest, the leading candidate to replace her is Michael Whatley, who's the chairman of the North Carolina GOP. He's been elected to that post 3 times. He also serves as general counsel for the RNC. And Andy, this is to me another sign that North Carolina is a big deal in national politics. If we're going to have the head of the RNC right here in North Carolina, just one more signal that we're the state to be.
Yeah, we are, and North Carolina is a perennial swing state. It generally goes Republican, but Democrats still have a chance there. So this kind of reflects North Carolina's importance nationally, politically. But it also reflects, I think, that Republicans, despite the swing status here in North Carolina, have been generally successful in elections here. And you kind of want to appoint successful people up the ladder. So you want to get somebody that has shown that, at least at the statewide level, they can lead a party apparatus that can get things done for their side.
And of course, the party is going to be very interested in 2024 elections. And now we switch gears to something that's very important here in North Carolina. It used to be called no excuse, one-stop absentee balloting. I don't think most people knew what the heck that was. Now North Carolina is officially calling this the early voting. And early voting starts next week. You focus on these issues. What should we know about early voting?
Yeah, this was a change. We had a law, Senate Bill 747, that got passed last year. And one of those things is that it moved early voting from being a subset of absentee voting to its own thing. It used to be they were all lumped together in the law. And it was because it was never conceptualized that early voting would kind of take over the way it has. They thought, okay, people that want to vote absentee, but maybe they just want to get it done before they go, they could stop by the Board of Elections and get that done before they head out of town or whatnot. But it has expanded since then, both legally and in use, and really since 2016, it's been the most popular option for voters. Well over 50% in the last several elections have voted early. A lot less. You've had a gradual decline in election day voting. So this has been an increasingly popular option. It's not cheap, however, because these county boards have to open early voting sites. I'll give you one example. In the 2022 election, Johnston County, which is right next to Wake County here in Raleigh, they spent, I think, $260,000 to keep their early voting sites open. And so you have to kind of balance. You want to make it as convenient as possible when you open these sites, but you still have to pay rent on the sites. You have to pay staff for each of those days. And that, of course, is money and time that cannot be devoted to other things. But North Carolina voters like it.
Yeah, they certainly do. There's also a piece of this we should mention for folks. Early voting also has the same-day registration. If you are not registered to vote, you can during early voting. There's a bit of a change in that because of state law.
There is. But with early voting, you also have the same-day registration. And so folks can come in, if they're not registered, they can register, or they can change their registration if they moved. One change is that with same-day registration, whereas before they would take this registration, you would cast your ballot, and even if they later find out that, well, wait a minute, this actually isn't a valid registration, we haven't been able to get proof that the person actually lives where they say they live, they would still accept the ballot. And now, if the change in the law, they will not accept the ballot if it turns out that the person is not where they say that they were. And as long as they are given a chance to get notified by the county board, that was a result of a recent lawsuit, then they can go ahead and cast their ballot, or they can challenge them not being registered.
Yes.
So I have a question on that. Like, what it seems to me like is happening is almost as if early voting is now becoming like the new Black Friday. So you remember how Black Friday, it used to be that we only had from like 4 a.m. after Thanksgiving morning till about noon to get everything done. And then all of a sudden it became like a couple of days before, and now it's like Black Friday to Cyber Monday. And it just seems like there was a consumer behavior has decided that it wants a lot more options, and it just seems like it's trickling down into even the way we expect elections and voting to become a little bit more bespoke. But I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, Americans, we love our convenience, and we love having choices. We love having options. That's the reason when foreigners come into an American grocery store, they're shocked about, you'll have like 20 different brands of mac and cheese, for example, in some of these places. In a lot of other countries, they have a much simpler system. You show up on election day. They don't even have absentee voting. They don't have early voting. So America and North Carolina are a little bit unusual in that sense.
Yeah, I have to ask both of you, do you use early voting, or do you at least like having that option? I'm an old fogey who says election day is election day, that's when I vote, but a lot of people really like this convenience.
I'm from Texas, so I definitely took advantage of like absentee voting when I lived in New York City for college and then DC afterwards. It was very important for me to have the roots in my state and still have a say in what's happening to, my family there, right? And so I, especially as Texas starts becoming more of a swing state over time, it's more crucial than ever. So I'm appreciative of stuff like that. I don't know so much about early voting, if it's something that I kind of like going to the polls and having that like moment. It feels like kind of nice.
Yeah. I'm a classic election day girl for sure. Like I want to be there. I want the thrill of it. Just like I like Black Friday shopping, though. I mean, I will be there at 5 a.m. If the doors are open at 5 a.m. at Kohl's, that's where I want to be, just because I like the authenticity of it. And so, big fan of same day or day of election day voting.
The one thing that gets me is the people who show up and stand in line for hours for the opening of early voting. I'm thinking, wait a minute, isn't this designed so that you don't have to do that on election day, and yet you're doing the same thing for early voting? Well, early voting starts next week. It starts on Thursday, right?
Thursday, the 15th.
And lasts through?
Saturday, the 2nd of March.
All right, so no early voting in those final couple of days before Election Day, which is important for people to know, but it does start next week. Now let's switch gears. Readers at foxnews.com recently had a chance to read a piece by our panelist Kelly Lester talking about hog farms. Tell us why you thought a national audience should know about this issue involving North Carolina hog farms.
So back in the 80s, 90s, hog farms were at their all-time high here in North Carolina. They've kind of just plateaued since. And there was a lot of criticism around hog waste. And it got a lot of national attention. And it's continued to get national attention since then. And a lot of liberal outlets specifically, I found during my research that the places that I talked about it most were places like Vox, Huffington Post, and I was like, why am I not seeing anything that argues against some of the rhetoric that was being used? Because at the end of the day, there is a lot of issues with hog waste and how it pollutes communities, and that is something that these people should have a say in. And because most of them live in rural poverty, they don't really have the power or the means to fight a company as large as Smithfield Foods and
now owned by the Chinese.
Now owned by the Chinese, yes. So since the 2000s, the Chinese bought it, and a documentary came out a couple years ago, but is currently being pushed by celebrities like Joaquin Phoenix it's called The Smell of Money, and it is about this issue, right? Specifically against Smithfield Farms or Smithfield Foods. And I actually had the privilege of talking to the documentary director this morning, and it was a really interesting conversation. In my Fox piece, I did, use the rhetoric of we shouldn't be attacking farmers. And that was something in the documentary that she did talk about, was that this isn't the farmers' faults. They're being told by Smithfield to use these big lagoon systems to pour all this waste into. And they're being told they can do it and that it's okay. And it's not their fault at the end of the day. It's a large multinational company's fault. And if there is anyone at fault here, because everyone's kind of a victim, maybe minus Smithfield. And so it was just a really important issue that I felt hadn't really been talked about, especially this term environmental racism that we see thrown around a lot. It's a very nuanced issue, and you can't just throw blanket terms at it. And so the Fox News piece, I really wanted to touch on maybe staying away from that leftist rhetoric that is only going to push people further away from this actually very real and serious issue going on.
Sounds as if you think that a more sober approach to it without the rhetoric would actually get to some good solutions.
I actually do, and I think that after talking to the director this morning, we kind of were like, we need to keep working on this. This is something that, like, she's like, this is my life. She's from North Carolina, grew up in rural North Carolina, went to UNC, and she's like, this is my passion project. And I was like, I want to help you with this passion project, but I'm going to be doing it from the other side. And that's where we need to come together for those things to give these people power. I think the right dislikes China and dislikes a company like Smithfield, and I think the left cares about the people that Smithfield is affecting.
Brooke, it sounds to me like this is a great example of the type of thing that the Center for Food, Power, and Life can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also because the Center for Food, Power, and Life talks about agriculture, it covers that, but it also covers energy and environment, and those are all at play here. They all directly affect us as North Carolinians, and at the end of the day, that's why certain things like this matter. It's because people matter, and those folks in rural North Carolina that are affected by poor policy decisions, that have been propped up as a way to try to maybe bring some justice or mitigate, but oftentimes fall short because there is that law of unintended consequences that is always at operation. And so allowing folks that are directly affected by the hog farming issues, whether it's the farmer or someone that lives nearby, is incredibly important. And so just sort of like what we were talking about related to insurance earlier, what is the proper role of government in all of this? That's what we constantly ask about here at Locke and Carolina Journal, as well as just those folks that are always reaching out to us and we're hearing from them. How does this actually affect the everyday North Carolinian, and how do we roll back the role of government so that people can actually have more of a say in what's going on in their lives?
Yeah, very important topic. And now we're going to switch to another very important topic. This topic gets zero attention. No one has ever talked about this issue at all. No, I'm just kidding. We're talking about Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift and pop culture and the Grammys, and Brooke, you saw something involving Taylor Swift and Lana Del Rey and said, I want to talk about this because it has implications for what we talk about here at Locke.
Yeah, rare is the day that I actually do, talk a lot about Taylor Swift. I am not a Swiftie, and I am prepared for the hate mail that will ensue by me admitting that. But I think there's a lot that we could learn just as we're going into the 2024 election about Taylor Swift and Lana Del Rey's friendship. Lana Del Rey is another pop singer, and she is sometimes associated with conservatism, or at least some conservative sort of personas, as she wraps herself in the American flag, talks a lot about patriotism. And Taylor Swift is a vocal Joe Biden supporter. She has been in the past, and some people might, associate her with more feminist sort of ideals, although Lana does in her own way too. So I believe we have a clip of Taylor Swift and Lana Del Rey just getting along despite their obvious political differences. So can we play that?
Where's Lana?
And so what I think this shows is it's just two young women, very successful, but both of them are very comfortable and confident in their own perspectives, whether that's political or societal or whatever the case may be, but they get along still. And we're going into 2024 election. We know that there are those people on the far end of both political spectrums that would love nothing more than to ostracize people and have really rude conversations at the Thanksgiving dinner table. But that's not most Americans, and that's not most North Carolinians. And so I think that this was just a good example of, once again, people just moving past their differences and getting along, right? I mean, I know that's what our hearts are. We just want to. We can disagree about things like you disagreed with the Hollywood director of that film. But yet at the end of the day, we're still people. We need to treat each other like it.
This reminds me actually of another pop culture reference, which is actually in the show Parks and Rec. The director actually said, or the writer said that the characters of Leslie Knope, who's kind of your Hillary Clinton-esque character, and Ron Swanson, who's your stark, tried and true, kind of almost anarchist libertarian. And he really wanted the message of these two people, regardless of how different they are politically, can find common ground and respect for each other. And I remember when I read that he said that, this was like back when I was, 20, 21, and I was like, oh my God, that's so nice. Like, why don't more people preach this? And I love having friends from all across the political aisle. I'm not one of those people that's going to delete someone on Facebook for something I disagree with. I'm going to read that whole post and be like, oh, that was interesting, and move on with my life, right?
That's healthy.
It's a healthy mindset.
Yeah. So, Andy, what do you think about Taylor Swift and Lana Del Rey and all this issue?
Well, frankly, I guess I'm going to expose my pop culture inclinations. I really don't think about either of them much. I will say, though, I as a parent of an 18-year-old, she just turned 18. She's going to be voting for the first time this year, probably on Election Day. She also happens to be a ginormous Lana Del Rey fan. I know the pain of a parent that really likes a pop star, because I had to haul her and a friend down to Charlotte for a concert and then haul them back from Charlotte on the same night because she was that much into her. And so these folks do have an influence on folks socially, and it's good to see that they can get along with each other.
Yeah, so you won the Gold Star Dad Award that night. So I also think that it's interesting to see these two getting along. and to see people who are such examples. We've seen Taylor Swift mainly in the news lately because of her romance with the Kansas City Chiefs' Patrick Kelce. And if you picked up the News and Observer anytime within the last couple of weeks, it's been hard to have a day when there hasn't been a photo and or a story, if not multiple stories, about Taylor Swift, including some crazy theories about how this is all designed to help reelect Joe Biden. I like Brooke's take that let's just look at this as an example of a way for everyone to get along, even if they don't agree politically. So any final thoughts on Taylor Swift?
Well, you touched on that whole conspiracy theory, which I think is absurd. I mean, what NFL player is actually going to agree to throw a game just so that Joe Biden can get reelected? I highly, highly doubt it. But you know what? We'll see. Either way, Twitter will continue to have its own conspiracy theories churning out every day.
And certainly some of those theories might come out depending on the outcome of the Super Bowl, which is this weekend. Everyone get your party ready and tune in for all those crazy commercials. That's all the time that we have for this week on the Debrief. We hope that you will like and subscribe. Don't shake it off, as T. Swift might say. Donna King will be back for the next show, and we hope you will join us again for another edition of the Debrief.